Om Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vridavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Fullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamaya Pradeepaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Vrudaduhe Namaha. Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So just a quick note, in case you face a problem with Zoom, please do disconnect and join back. Most likely it is a Zoom issue, not any of our internet issues. So we are looking at the chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, and we have crossed, I think, almost more than half of it. We are looking at this very important aspect of Karma Yoga. Now you may say, how is Karma Yoga really applicable to me? Well, one of the biggest areas where Karma Yoga for us is applicable is when I'm choosing a profession, for example. If we were to ask ourselves that I'm choosing a profession because it pays me well, then we are certainly not following Karma Yoga. So the whole idea is if you're asked what you want to become in life, and if money is not a factor, then we are following Karma Yoga. And not only that, the answer will really give you the profession you really want to join in, because you would be enjoying that action itself. And when I'm enjoying that aspect of doing the job and I'm not really worried of the outcome, then it gives me so much of joy. Matter of fact, I look at this aspect of Karma Yoga as probably the best technique for stress reduction. Getting rid of our anxieties, fears, frustrations, just about everything can be obtained by understanding Karma Yoga at its best. So this having said, but today, how do we work as far as profession is concerned? What we do is we look many times, not for the love of the profession, but how that professional knowledge can translate into money, into power, into prosperity, into status symbols. So we are really hooked to the outcome of it. If you think about it, we are really hooked to the outcome of what this profession is going to give me. However, Karma Yoga is telling us that if I were to work as per what my passion is, where I'm good at, where I can take my skills forward, then I will really benefit from even the reason why I've taken this birth, why I've taken this human body. It really gives a sense of purpose. Another way to look at it is that anyway, the outcome is really not in our hands. The moment I act anything, the situation is now bound by so many variables, out of which only one aspect is this aspect of my acting, doing my action. So then the question comes as to why even bother about something which I have no control, right? But the truth be said, most of the time, we really don't enjoy the action. We just choose the action depending upon what we can get out of it. And so we find that we get so attached to the outcome and its consequences. It's like this. I mean, if I have to plant a rose bush today, I can plant my rose bush, I can water it, I can get the best rose plant. But can I control the weather? Especially this year, we are told it's going to be a hot summer. So I wonder how my rose bush would really thrive in these conditions. Another example, in 2020, in February of 2020, we had so many people working so hard, thinking that, okay, I'm going to get a promotion or anything, but then COVID struck. Did we anticipate that the COVID would strike at the magnitude that it did? So what does it say? The outcome of whatever I do is not in our hands. So this is an important aspect why Karma Yoga is really an important aspect. We get attached so much to the outcome, and this chapter is continuously reminding us that just focus on the action. So I have a very short reflection time today. And I want you to look at the answers and tell me which ones are applicable for who is a Karma Yogi. Who is a Karma Yogi? So we have a Karma Yogi is one who is focused on action alone. A Karma Yogi is one who's focused on the goal. A Karma Yogi is one who's focused on the outcome. And a Karma Yogi is one who does not sit back doing nothing. So which ones do you think are applicable and which one is not applicable?
Who's focused on action alone?
Focused on action alone, okay. So this is actually a tricky one. This time I planted a very tricky set of questions here. So you got one right, that is true. Anything more?
I think who is focused on the goal and also he does not sit back doing nothing.
Very good, excellent. So yes, all these three are the right ones. And the one who is focused on the outcome is not the correct answer. Yes. So this is the reason I put this up is many times the question would also come is Bhagavad Gita telling us that I should not have a goal? And that is not true. You absolutely need to have a goal to start with, because without a goal, how would we even start anything? How would we start a project? I mean, if I don't have a goal of going to Costco to buy something, how would I even start my car, right? So goal is necessary, but the outcome is not in our hands. So three of them are correct here. The one who is focused on action and the one who is focused on the goal. And such a person does not sit back doing anything. So it's a very subtle difference between this goal and outcome, but nevertheless, it's an important one. So that's the idea which I wanted to give here. Okay, so another two very simple questions. This karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Okay, so this is Lord Krishna's answer to which, what do you think is, what aspect of Arjuna's confusion is Lord Krishna trying to address? You may want to think about some of the questions that Arjuna had posed to Lord Krishna when he wanted to give up fighting. So what do you think was the particular confusion that Arjuna was trying to, or Lord Krishna is addressing Arjuna's confusion? So he was trying to actually address the confusion on whether he's going to win or the Kauravas are going to win. You know, so this is the two shlokas, which is Nahi prapashyami mama panudyat yachokam yuchokshanam indriyanam avapya bhuma vasapatnam riddham rajyam suranam apichadipadyam. So it's shloka number 2.8. So I just wanted to give you that idea also, why this particular shloka came here. It is connected to a previous shloka, which is Arjuna was, if you remember, he was a little hesitant. You know, he, towards the end of his narrative, he was actually thinking, okay, there's a good chance that I might lose and Kauravas might win. You know, that doubt came in his mind. So this is why Lord Krishna tells him, karmanyavadikaraste, you have right only over your action, not on the outcome. Ma phaleshu kadachanam. So that's the thing. The second one, ma karma phalahetur bhuhu mate sangostva karmani. So this verse is also an answer to Arjuna's question. What do you think might be the question? Basically, it means ma karma phala heturbu mate sangosva karmani. So do not, be attached to inaction, and do not be somebody who, because of something only that you will act. Phala heturbuhu, hetuhu, reason. Let not your action be because of a particular reason. So this is also again tied to some of the chapter 1, where Arjuna, you know, he gave a reason for not fighting because he didn't want to be the cause for the destruction of the Kula and everything, Kula and etc. And therefore he said, you know what, I'm not going to act. I'm not going to do anything. So he was actually, forcing himself to be in inaction. And Krishna is saying, Lord Krishna is saying, you can't be inaction. You can't allow yourself to be in inaction. And, so the things, the shlokas were like in chapter 138, Yadyapyete na pashyanti lobo pahata chetasaha kulakshaya kritam dosham mitra drohe chapatakam. He's saying that, you know, if I do something, I'm going to cause evil, I'm going to destroy our families and everything. You know, how can I allow that to happen? So this is why this shloka was said by Lord Krishna. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a flavor for how these shlokas are connected. Everything has its place. And again, of course, this is as much as it is for Arjuna, but for us, it means so much because Arjuna may be fighting the battle of Kurukshetra, but we are fighting the battle of life. And in life, we can't afford to just sit and do nothing. So that is why these are important. Okay, so we saw the Karmanyavadhikariste shloka. I won't go into it, but if you remember, again, the idea is focusing on the action and focusing on, not focusing on the results, and also not to be focused on the attachment to results. So this is what we said. A karma yogi is one who is concerned with the action. He has no concern with results. He does not work for a special or his action is not motivated by a specific result. And at the same time, he doesn't sit back doing nothing. So he's a true worker and he understands all this. So last time I put up this particular set of questions where such powerful questions, I mean, some people may look at the shloka of Karmanyavadi Karaste and say that, the shloka doesn't talk anything about, I mean, is telling me that I should not have any goals or I should not worry of my outcome. So then how should I really plan my work? Should I even make progress in my career? Should I not be just sitting and, be quiet? So if I'm not motivated by the results, how will I know where I'm heading? So there is one beautiful Subhashita, I think, or maybe it is just a Sanskrit shloka which says, Prayojanam anudishya na mandopi pravartate. Prayojanam meaning purpose, anudishya, without a purpose, a manda meaning a fool, even a fool will not act. So even fools will not enter into activity without knowing what is in it for them. So such being the case, the interpretation of this shloka was an important aspect. So to answer all this, we have Lord Krishna. He says, of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong in aiming for a specific goal and even to be inspired by it. In fact, he pushes us. He says, if you're thinking about earning $1 million, guess what? You may earn that very quickly. Then what will you do? So he wants us to keep on, setting up high goals. He wants us to set a vision. He wants us to define the goal. The only thing he's saying is when you define the goal, make sure you have a plan and follow through the plan. And that is the important thing. So we need to be motivated by all these goals, but we definitely should not be motivated by the outcome of it, because the outcome, as we know, like I give this example of the rose bush, there are so many factors which is beyond our control. But nevertheless, we need to put our action and continue to do it and not stop by not doing it. So this is a very important aspect that Lord Krishna is addressing here. And if anyone has any questions on this thing, please do send me a note and we'll address it as well, because this shloka is actually a cornerstone shloka for us to be highly inspired, motivated to engage ourselves in a field of action where our skills can have the best possible chance for succeeding. That's the whole idea of the shloka. So again, focus on the work will reap huge benefits, both in the material world as in spiritual world. We saw that last time. I just wanted to put that as a connection here. And then we also said that if I were to perform, or if I were to do any action with a desire indicating with a desire for a specific outcome, then I might be disappointed, because it may happen, it may not happen. So there is a chance of that happening. So for that reason, if I were to perform anything without a desire for the outcome, to that extent, my mind gets purified and it is available for that highest knowledge, which was discussed in the first set of shlokas from 11 to 24, all those shlokas which talked about that we are Atma. In order for us to even recognize that I'm Atma, first I need to go through this karma yoga part of it and do the best possible, give the best shot at karma yoga to clean up my mind of desires. And once I do that, the mind becomes a little more, less amount of garbage, so to speak. And because it's clearer, then my mind focuses on a higher goal. So that is why we do this. So this brings us to the next shloka, which we touched upon last time. And this shloka basically is telling us that since this outcome, what we talked about, of any action is somewhere in the future, whether it is success in something or not success in that same thing, since it's in the future, and since I don't have much control of it because there are so many variables, so what choice do I have? So my choice then is only to act in the present time. Now, we all know there are so much of literature out there, in the Western world. I mean, mindfulness is a big thing, and everyone says, oh, be in the present, be in the present. And that's great. That's wonderful that we say be in the present. But Bhagavad Gita really goes into the depth of why you should be in the present. As we saw, I mean, we have to be in present because that's the only choice we have. I cannot be projecting what I want in the future. So that being said, I have to be in the present. And this shloka which is coming up tells us that how should I be in the present? How should I maintain myself? It says that you have to be calm and you have to be even-minded. So we will see this beautiful definition of yoga called Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. That is to be calm and even-minded, and that is called as yoga. And this shloka actually forms a sort of, if you may, it forms a seed for the 3rd chapter and the 4th chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So an understanding of the shloka would help us a lot as we go to the 3rd chapter. So it says, Yogastha kuru karmani, Yogastha kuru karmani, Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya, Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya, Sithya siddhyo samo bhutva, Sithya siddhyo samo bhutva, Samatvam yoga uchyate, Samatvam yoga uchyate. So it says uchyate, uchyate meaning that is what it is called. So what is it that is called? That is yoga. So yoga is defined as being samatvam, even-minded. Even-minded is called as yoga. Now, having said that, that yoga, yogastaha kuru karmani. So have that samatvam always, kuru, you do that in all your actions. So be completely yoga, be in that yoga. But it says yoga staha. So staha meaning remain steadfast or remain established or be abiding always in that even-mindedness. Yoga staha kuru again from the kru dhatu or to show that to do, which means that whenever we are performing actions or whenever I'm doing any actions, so be always even-minded. And then another very important, in fact, this is probably the one important thing which he says here, because if you remember in the previous shlokas, he said, just do your action, just focus only on the action. But then he didn't say how. How should I focus on that action? So the answer is given here in this shloka, where he says, Sangam tyaktva. Sangam tyaktva. Tyaktva, again, for my Sanskrit students there, you can see this is the suffix of the twa pratyaya. Tyaktva, which is giving up. Okay, give up. Tyakta. So we know tyaga, right? Tyaga means to give up. So tyaktva, so give up. Sangha, sangha means attachment. And then he calls Arjuna here by a very nice word. He calls him by a word called Dhananjaya. Dhananjaya. Dhananjaya means fire, actually. So he's literally calling, he's saying, oh, fire, guess what? You're becoming very cold here, you know. So wake up, you know, be strong and burn like fire, burn all your attachments. And, you know, Dhananjaya is actually Dhanam Jayati iti Dhananjayam, which is you have conquered the outer wealth. Now conquer your inner wealth also. So that is what he's trying to show here. And if I think if you remember this shloka, which I kept referring to before, which is shloka number 38, Sukha Dukhe Same Kritva Labha Labhau Jaya Jayo Tato Yuddhaya Yujyasva. So he's trying to bring that aspect here, because he, in that shloka, you remember he said, whether it is sukha or dukkha, or whether it's in joy or in sorrow or in success or failure, sukha dukkhe same kritva. Same kritva, be sama. So that is the same thing he's trying to bring here. He's saying that in the actions, because again, this shloka follows karmanyevadikaraste, where he said, focus on the action. So here he's saying, focus on the action, be even-minded to start off. You know, even before you start, when you do the action, be even-minded, because like we said, the outcome is not in our hands. So my only thing is that I should be even-minded. And then just he says karmani. Okay, you go karmani. That means don't be too hyperactive or something. Don't say that, you know, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm doing so much of karma yoga. No, that is not what karma yoga is. So karma yoga is that where you have that attitude of even-mindedness, and you have the attitude of giving up attachment. Tyaktva, sangam tyaktva. And of course, the question comes, what is it that I'm giving up here? You know, why, what do you mean by giving up something here? So he's trying to say this tyangam tyaktva is you're giving up basically any attachment to the fruits of action. We are renouncing totally all attachments. And I'm focusing only on that goal. And as Gurudev would say, let only your hands and the mind, they work, let them go together. Let not your mind be in different places and your hands are working. You know, sort of like, for example, if I'm washing dishes, right? Many times we think that washing dishes is a very repetitive job, it's monotonous. So we allow our mind to think at that time something else, and my hand is still, washing the dishes. But that's not what he's trying to show here. He's trying to say that be even-minded and try not to be attached to any of your thoughts in your mind, and just focus on the action. So very nice shloka again. The samatvam yoga uchyate is a very popular term to mean be even-minded in whatever we do here. So let us talk about what do we mean by attachment. Obviously, we all would say we are attached to something or the other, and that is true. Maybe we are attached to our parents, maybe we're attached to our children, maybe we're attached to our profession, maybe we're attached to our community, maybe we're attached to doing so. We cannot live without attachments. That is true. We all have these attachments. And again, as Gurudev would say, thank God these attachments are not physical attachments. Imagine if they were physical attachments, if I was attached to my water here, if I was attached to my phone, then these things would be sticking to me all over, and I cannot even move if that was the case, right? So these attachments are essentially actually nothing but a thought. It is a thought in my mind. And it is the thought of I and I want. I want. This is again Gurudev's statement here. I plus I want. I want something. I plus I want something becomes the attachment. So when I perform an action, so what happens is I always have that thought in my head that I need something, and that is why I do it. And the interesting thing of this shloka, if you look at it, is in Karmanyavadikaraste, Lord Krishna was telling Arjuna, don't think about the future, right? Don't think about what you want or anything. Just focus on the action. Be in the present. In this shloka, I think what, if I interpret this, I look at it as let not your previous desires, so your past, decide on the outcome of what you want in the future. So let not that be the case, and let not that desire, which is caused by this attachment, be the reason or motivation for your action. Just focus on what needs to be done and focus on whatever the highest goal you want to do it, and just do it. So that is how he's trying to show by this aspect of I plus I want. So give up that attachment of how the results will come out to be. So that will lead to the purification of our mind. So just as an example, I wanted to give here about, let's consider the love of a child by a mother versus, the same child when is looked after a nanny. The mother is, after all, it's the mother's child, right? So the mother is extremely attached to the child. And because of the attachment, there is a certain amount of subconsciously, in fact, it's such an unconscious way of developing. The mother develops a lot of expectations. Maybe my child, will grow up, and my child is, going to do so well in studies, and my child is, going to do so well later on. And maybe my child will take care of me when I grow up. Maybe my child will become a doctor or an engineer, or, maybe an Elon Musk, going to Mars or anything. So psychologically, that thing comes up right away. But do you think the nanny is going to think the same way? Not really, right? The nanny is just going to do her own swadharma of taking care of the child. So the nanny really has zero expectations from the child. And because she has zero expectations, she is actually able to have that samatvam yoga uchyate. She's able to have that equanimity in the in her own job, in her profession, in how she is taking care of the child. So what is really the difference then? What caused the difference between both of them? It is the sense of attachment. Sangam tyaktva. So sangam, that's why this word sangam is so important here. The difference between the mother and the nanny is the attitude. One is very attached and the other is unattached. And the one who has attachments obviously has a certain level of expectations for the future, whereas the other one does not. So how do we look at this from a practical standpoint? How do I, work with these attachments in my own life? So the whole idea we can do this is anytime when my mind gets into the state of I plus I want. So think about that equation, I plus I want in my mind. Then if I'm able to detach myself from that want, and I can focus on just that pure I, to that extent, you will see that the mind doesn't wander that much. The mind doesn't really disturb us so much. So you see, it is, first we need to understand this technique of how I have to work in this world. And then when I sit in meditation and I ponder upon it, it becomes so much more easier to practice that meditation. So if we constantly do this job of thinking about, of eliminating this I plus I want, which comes either from the past, or projecting into the future, then I can actually channel all the energy into the present. And when I can channel the energy into the present, I will do obviously a great job by being in the present. So this is what being in the present, being even-minded, and working without attachments is really what it means of being in the present. So that I just wanted to give that aspect on how important it is of the importance of the shloka in recognizing the level of attachments and seeing how I can give it up and when I give it up and I do the job for the sake of the job, it comes out to be beautifully. So sangam tyaktva, meaning renounce completely at the level of the gross level. That is, for example, if I do a great job at work, and when I do the great job at work, I suppose, I'm in a situation where, I did a certain project and I really enjoyed doing the project, but I was a little shy to go to my boss and say that, you know what, I did this. And I expect that the boss will see it and come and tell me, hey, you did a great job. Well, and if it didn't happen, then if I get disappointed, then that means I was really attached to the outcome, right? Now, again, somebody may ask, then what does that mean? Does that mean that, I should be telling everyone what I did? Well, we have to tell at least people who may not necessarily know directly, but if I can tell them what exactly was done, then to that extent, I have at least done the job of saying, but whether I will get the praise or anything is not in my hands. So that's at the material level. And actually, it is also the emotional level, because at the emotional level, there's a certain expectations. So this shloka is again saying, focus only on the action, give up the attachment to what is expected out of it, both at the gross level indicating from, am I expecting some material benefits like a pay rise or anything? Not that I should not get, I absolutely have to work towards a pay rise and I have to tell my boss, but whether I will actually get the pay raise is not in my hands. And I can tell you that sometimes when it comes to performance reviews, for example, we are placed in the midst of everybody. And depending on who does what they do, sometimes the pay raises are governed accordingly. Now, the amazing thing the shloka goes into is not just at the material and emotional level, but it says one has to give up attachment even at a spiritual level, even at the highest level. This is what Bhagavan Shankaracharya ji in his bhashya for the shloka, he says that, this even that one also has to be given up totally. He says, Kevala Ishwaratam, he says, Kevala Ishwaratam, you do this only for the sake of God, not for the sake of anybody. And there also, Tatrapi, he says, if you do this, and if you do with this idea that, oh, let God be pleased with what I say, even that one should be able to give it up. And we have at the very highest level, great Mahatmas like Tulsi Das ji, and then we have Prahlad, and we have, Mirabai, all of them, which basically they say that Bhagavan, even if you break this relationship with me, I'm not going to break it. To that extent, the devotees were so much, devoted to God. And of course, that is not yet shown here, but the whole idea Shankaracharya ji actually goes into that level to explain how much the shloka says to give up attachment. So, but of course, for us, we have to progress slowly from a gross level to a subtle level, and then ultimately to that level to do that. So, in the shloka, then we need to first clearly understand what exactly is karma yoga, which is to perform our duties, which is totally free of any attachment to any material or appreciation, etc. And then the second part, which is what I wanted to come here, which is siddha asiddha yoho samo bhutva, which is both in success, siddhi, and asiddhi. Asiddhi indicating which is the opposite of success, this is failure. So both in an accomplishment and also in failure, samo bhutva, remain totally same, even-minded. So this is the definition for the yoga which he is given here. And he says, when you perform your karmas with this attitude, then what happens is the mind becomes totally purified. And when it gets purified, you see that slowly and slowly that performance of only the kartavya karma, which is nitya karma and the naimittika karmas, when we keep on doing that, then slowly and slowly the desires which were there in our mind also slowly and slowly starts to fall away. And when it falls away, then our mind becomes more and more chitta, more and more purer. So it's a long process though, but this is the only way that we can actually end our attachment, our karma bandhana. Karma bandhana means bondage, the bondage to actions which are driven by our likes and dislikes. So Swami Chinmayananda, again, this shloka is such a powerful shloka where he gives a great example, and I cannot but help relay that example because it's so powerful. So the shloka says, again, of course, let have a goal, let not any obstacle deter you, which is siddha siddhyo samo bhutva, which is be even-minded, indicating that many times we tend to become affected by obstacles. So where can I go and learn on how not to have any obstacles in my path? Only from Mother Ganga. And what example is this? This is a beautiful example that Swami Chinmayananda gives, which is, he says about, how Mother Ganges, when Mother Ganges starts all the way from Gangotri and it is coming down the plains, along, it's coming, between the mountains, you can see the Ganges flowing between the mountains of the Himalayas. Her only goal as she flows down is to reach the Bay of Bengal. So millions of gallons of water, are flowing continuously. And as it flows continuously, it, goes through so many different obstacles. Sometimes there are huge mountains which obstructs the way. Sometimes there are big rocks on the way. Sometimes there are smaller pebbles. And in all this, she finds a way to navigate through all this. At times, if there's a small obstacle, she just gracefully jumps over. And if it is much bigger, then she doesn't stop. She just, Swami Chinmayananda uses a beautiful simile. He says, she just lifts up her white sari and then goes around these big rocks. And then when there is all these mountains and she knows she cannot jump over it or anything like that, she just, takes it as a joke and she just rubs her shoulders along the foot of the mountain. And she knows that the mountain, cannot be there for eternal time. So for 1 or 2 miles, she has to really work through, slowly through the mountains, do this. And then when the mountain, ranges have ended their curves, then she proceeds again in the same direction. And then she pours into the Bay of with the Bay of Bengal. So this is a great example to show that how we need to be like Mother Ganges, where no matter what kind of obstacles, as huge as mountains, as huge as any of the big rocks, or maybe even small pebbles, no obstacles need to deter us. And in all this, to be being a completely even-minded. So learn from Mother Ganga is what I wanted to give you this idea of, and to keep the balance, inner balance, and cool all the time. And from a recent one, I don't know how many of you read this beautiful book called The Last Lecture by Randy Pausch. Randy Pausch was a professor at Carnegie Mellon in the computer science department. And he passed away of pancreatic cancer at a very young age, at an age of 45, actually. He had only a few months to live when he discovered that he had this cancer. And amazing person. You can go to NBC and you can type in The Last Lecture and you can actually listen to the whole lecture of his. But one of the quotes that he said really appealed to me, and which again is in line with this particular shloka, which says, the brick walls are not there to keep us out. The brick walls are there to give us a chance to show how badly we want something. So this is just to show the aspect of obstacles. But our shloka, the Samatvam Yoga Uchyate shloka actually says to be even-minded, even in the midst of any obstacles. Nothing can take away that freedom we have of holding on to our own cool. Nothing can take away that. So that's the shloka, what the shloka is saying. So having said that, the next shloka, which is 49, now we see two shlokas, 47 and 48, which gave us an idea of karma yoga and how we have to act and everything. Shloka number 49 really talks about how we are not supposed to act. And of course, reading this, we can see that that is exactly how we act today. And let us see what Lord Krishna really talks about this shloka here. Durena hyavaram karma, durena hyavaram karma, buddhi yogat dhananjaya, buddhi yogat dhananjaya, buddhau sharanaman vichha, buddhau sharanaman vichha, kripana phalahetavaha, kripana phalahetavaha. So you see, he says, he uses a very strong word. He uses kripanaha. Kripanaha, or wretched, are those people who work only for what is in it for them. Kripannaha, phala meaning fruit of action, hetavaha, or the reason, are those who work only for a particular fruit. He calls them as Kripannaha. So he says that is far, far lower. Durena hi avaram karma. Durena is so far removed from what we just talked about. Durena avaram meaning inferior, and karma, action. So he says that kind of action is so far inferior. Oh, Dhananjaya, he calls him Dhananjaya again. And he says, Buddhi Yogat. Only that which can be worked through from the intellect. Buddhi Yogat, Buddhau Sharanam Anvicha. Sharanam meaning surrender. And therefore, just surrender yourself to that intellect. So he's trying to show that is what is that's the way to just focus on using the intellect in every action you do. But again, I want to show the contrast as to what do we do? How do we act today? Today, we are prompted by our own instincts and impulses. So it's like this, this is called as a hamster wheel. hamster wheel, which is, you keep on, trying to operate it, and you're just going round and round and round and round in the same place, So we are not necessarily using our own mind. We are more prompted by our instinct and helps our impulses. And we are constantly, sweating and working so hard, putting in more than our 8 hours. Most of the time, 8 hours of work is enough, but we are putting in more hours than 8 hours. And in all this, the idea is that we are prompted by instincts and impulses. And Lord Krishna is saying this is no different than an animal suffering and running about. So he says, try to be somebody who can be above all this. Try to be a true worker. And he says, Karma Buddhi Yogaha Dhananjaya. So, hey, Arjuna, understand that try to use the Karma Yoga way in whatever you do. So, I could be a CEO, I could be a manager, I could be an IT person, I could be, a chemical engineer, anybody, it doesn't matter. But if I can bring this aspect of Karma Yoga into everything I do, consciously practicing the Samatvam Yoga Uchyate, constantly practicing on focusing in bringing my skills and my passion into my work, to that extent, I can be even more successful. And in this one, let not our goals be small, as I mentioned earlier. Let not it be just $1 million or something. It can be $100 million, $1,000 million. Why not? But the idea being is anything and everything I do, I keep my ideal, but keep my goal, but I'm always even-minded in whatever I do. So an aspect which comes out in this shloka is keep the goal very high, but reaching the goal is not the important thing here. Very important. Reaching the goal is not important. Because as you know, once I reach my goal, then I will get into inaction. I will say that, okay, this is enough for me. I'm done and everything. So, but striving to reach the goal. So the key is striving. I need to underline this part, which is striving to reach the goal. Setting the goal high and working hard towards the goal, smilingly and with love and doing everything the best way. That is what is expected here. So if I don't do that, then I'm called as a Kripannaha or a miser. So miser is someone who just does just enough. In fact, somewhere I read this about how a miser is one who will not even go to a restaurant to eat. He will just, she or he will go to the restaurant just to smell the food and is happy with that. So let us not be a miser is the thing which the shloka is trying to say, and try to focus on putting our goals so high that we can work in achieving those goals through proper work. So again, the word Kripannaha is brought here because a Kripannaha is one who, by working through impulses and instincts, he or she is looking for worldly results, for short-term gains. And we know these short-term gains are very limited, right? And I mean, even during this COVID times, we have seen how supplies became so short sometimes. And if I always focus on what I want for today, then I would be disappointed. The other thing is that the results are always uncertain, again, because situations keep changing. So naturally, whatever I'm trying to gain from the world is uncertain. And because of this, what happens is, or the third aspect here, a defect is, because I'm prompted by my instincts, I'm always looking to be, to get those results, which is based on only what I like and what I don't like. And I've become a slave to the world. I'm constantly looking at only what is out there to make me happy. So with the result, what happens is I become more and more individualistic. I'm not able to accept that there is, there is there's some shortage or anything. I'm not flexible. My individuality becomes stronger and stronger. And this is the reason why I have to be constantly going through the cycle of birth and death. In Bhajagovindam, we have the shloka, Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Jatare Shayanam, Ihsamsare, Bahudustare, Kripaya Pare, Pahi Murare. So that's why we keep coming back again and again to the cycle of birth and death. So Lord Krishna is saying, don't be a Kripannaha, because there is nothing what we're looking for this, and try to change our goal to a higher one. So with that, I will just chant this next shloka, and we'll take this up next week for further analysis. There's a few more shlokas on Karma Yoga, which again, these are just, if you can see, they are just bird's eye view into Karma Yoga. When we get into the 3rd chapter and 4th chapter, we will be looking more into it. This is also a very important shloka, because you can see that last thing, which says how one can become really, really good at something. And how do I become really good at something? How do I become confident? And how do I, develop that sense of expertness in everything? That's the yoga karmasu kaushalam, which is called here yoga karmasu. How do I develop the skill in action? So it says, buddhi yukto jahatiha, buddhi yukto jahatiha, ubhe sukruta dushkrute, ubhe sukruta dushkrute, tasmat yogaya yujyasva, tasmat yogaya yujyasva, yoga karmasu kaushalam, yoga karmasu kaushalam. So buddhi yuktaha, that is when I lift myself from my own ego, which we talked about in the previous one. And when I'm inspired by my ideal, and when I surrender to that Lord, then what happens? Both endowed with that wisdom and casting off in this life, both good and actions. Then when I devote myself to yoga, and we'll discuss that more, yoga being here skill of action, then that action becomes so beautiful. So we will talk about how this is a way for us also to get rid of our vasanas, and really a shloka which gives us more insights into how we can make our life more purposeful. So with that, I'll stop here. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.